Hello everyone, this is Suresh from Azure ADB. Today our topic is how to convert timestamp to date. Suppose I have input like this. Suppose from my source I am getting date format, or you can say timestamp format in this particular format. So how it is there? So first we have date, year, month and date, and T is there, and a timestamp we have all zeros. So here first is hour, minute, second, millisecond. Then this plus symbol is this time zone. So currently time zone is 0. So from this, I want to extract date. Not extract, just converting this timestamp format to date format. So this is my source data. So while moving source data to bronze layer, so my format is like this because while moving data from source to branch, so we are not going to do any changes. So as it is, we'll move raw data as it is, we'll move. So while moving bronze data to silver data, so I want to convert this timestamp to date format. And from silver to gold, so same date it will carry over. So for this, what I'm doing, so first I'm importing required functions. So mainly I required to underscore date and call. So first example is, so I have one CSV file. So this you can consider as source data. So if I read this particular data, so I have this many columns in this. So here I have this many columns in this. And if you observe here, start underscore date is the column we are going to discuss about in this video. So as I told, so this is a timestamp format, date, timestamp. So from source, we are getting like this. So this one I want to convert it into date format. So, and you can check your data types here. If you see here, your first column, start underscore date, that is timestamp. Okay, so next what I'm going to do is, I'm creating one new column that is date underscore past. So here I'm using to underscore date function on top of start underscore date. So this is the column I want to convert it. So here I'm using to underscore date, and on top of this column, start underscore date. And for to underscore date, what it does is it will convert timestamp to date format. So for that, this column has timestamp value. So the same format we need to define here. So what is our input format? Same format we need to define here. So like year, month, date. See here, year, month, date, and in between T is there, and hour, minute, second, millisecond. See here, hour, minute, second, millisecond. So this we need to define here. So if you define this, so to underscore date, what it does is it will convert into our default date format. If you see here, this is the new column name we given, date underscore past. And if you see here, it converted from timestamp to date. If you see a month, year, date. So to underscore date, it converts to default format. So that is year, month, date. Okay, so here I used a with column. So I just shown uh, how it will convert from this start date to date underscore past by using with column. So now what I'm going to do is same I'm using with column. So instead of giving new column name, so I'm giving same column name. So that means I want to overwrite. So here I'm defining start underscore date, to underscore date on top of this column, start underscore date, and I'm defining format. So what it does, it will convert to underscore date. This particular column, it will convert from timestamp to date format. See here it not generating existing column itself, it converting. And if you observe here, see here, if you keep mouse here, it's showing date. So that means data type, it converted to date type. And if you observe here, so we have both columns, source and target. So start underscore date, that is a timestamp value, timestamp date format. And if you see here, date underscore past, it is converted to date type. So next what we'll do is, so this is the explanation about a format. So whatever I defined format in to underscore date. So to underscore date, this is the format I defined here. So that format explanation I given. So format. So first is year, month, date. So year, month, date. And in between T is there. T is a literal T in the string. Next is hour, minute, second. So same thing I mentioned, hour, minute, second. And a dot triple S is milliseconds. And triple X is time zone offset. Time zone offset plus 00. Because our initial timestamp, if you see time zone, 00 is there. So that is the meaning of this format. So next, so I'm giving high level information on to underscore date function. So I already made one video on a very detailed video on how to use the to underscore date function. It is in my PySpark playlist. So here to underscore date function is used to format a date string or timestamp string column into date type column using specified format. So that means to underscore date, it will convert either date string or timestamp string. So that means if you see here, our input is timestamp. Our input is timestamp. So sometimes what will happen is here it will be only date, but if you see data type, it will be string. So that's why we'll call as date string. So date string, it will convert to date data type. Okay, so similar way, timestamp string. So if you see timestamp, if you see in our source data frame, see here, this is a timestamp, but we have format of timestamp. But sometimes you will get this timestamp as string data type. Okay, so for all these scenarios, to underscore date, it will convert to date type. But you need to specify the format of your input data. So like how we define for this. So this is a timestamp. So for this, we define format, no? So similar way, we need to define the format. So if this particular date, it is in default format, suppose we have here, instead of timestamp, we have date here, and that date, it is in default format, like year, month, date. Then no need to mention this format. So directly you can mention to underscore date and only column name. So all this in details about to underscore date, I already made video. You can refer there. So if the format is not provided, to underscore date takes the default value as this one. So as I told this. So and it extracts only the date portion, removes the time part if present. So that means, see here in our example here, we have timestamp. But what it does is, it will convert to date. So that means from this timestamp, it extracting only date portion and it ignoring this timestamp part. So next, it returns null if the format does not match. So to underscore date extracts only the date. It ignores the time. So to underscore timestamp parses both date and time. So it returns null. So that means if you give, suppose in case if you provide here wrong format, then it will return null here. Instead of date, it will return null. So you should be careful with while defining the format, correct format. And this is the syntax to underscore date. So we need to define the column name inside and format, you have to mention it. So same thing here, column. So column can be either date string or timestamp string. So this format is optional. So optional means if not provided, it tries to parse the default format. So as I told initial, if you're not providing any format, so it will take default format, that is year, month, date. So next, same example. So I'm trying in different way, like I created one notebook. So in this, I created one function here. So if you see here, %run, so by using magic command, I'm running this notebook. So this notebook and our initial notebook, it is there in one folder. So I created one scenario, one folder. So under this, we have these two notebooks. So as of now, we discussed about this notebook. So now I'm going to show this notebook. So in this, what function is created? If you see in this config notebook, so here what I'm doing, first initially I called required functions to underscore date and call. Here I created one function here. So my function name is convert underscore timestamp underscore date. So here I defined three parameters. So first one is the data frame, df. So data frame I need to pass here, and column name and date underscore format I mentioned none. So what I want to return is df dot with column and column name I mentioned here to underscore date. So to underscore date, what we need to pass column name and date format. So whatever we mentioned earlier directly by using with column, that is same thing I mentioned in the form of function. If I see here, this with column I mentioned here, no, this one, this line of code I defined in function. Okay, so df dot with column. So column name you need to provide and to underscore date function. So this function I'm calling in this notebook. So this config, no? So for getting this function, so first we need to run this notebook. So that is %run config. By using magic command, I'm using %run dot backslash config. Since both the files in same folder, so directly we can access using dot backslash config. Suppose if it is in subfolder, then you have to mention config, then subfolder name, you have to mention it. So on regarding this function also, I created already one video in my Databricks playlist. So very detailed I explained there how to use this %run function. So if I run this code, what will happen? It will run this notebook. So in this notebook, what are the code is there? All the functions it will run. So it will complete the notebook and it is ready to get that function name. So if you see here, this function, as we discussed initial function, so this function I'm calling here. So how I'm calling? This is the function name and inside I'm passing these parameters, data frame, column name and format. And if you see here, this is function name and my data frame name is df underscore ts. You see initial, whatever I read my initial data frame, this is df underscore ts. So that my initial data frame I'm passing here. Okay, this is my initial data frame and column name I'm passing. This is the column name and format I'm passing here. Okay, so if I pass, then we'll get a result. That means the timestamp column, it converted to date column. So explanation is same. So only difference is this function I created in other notebook, I am calling here. That is the only difference. So next we'll see, so as of in this particular data frame, we saw how to convert single column. So next we'll see, suppose if your data frame has multiple columns, multiple date or timestamp columns, then how to convert by using function. So for that, I am creating one sample data frame here. So this is my data and these are all the columns and this is my final data frame. So in this, I have two columns of date and timestamp. If you see here, this is my date column, but if you see this one, string. So while explaining to underscore date function, I told no. So input, suppose your input has a date string. So that means this is a date and data type is string type. Similar way, this is a timestamp and data type is string. So date string, timestamp string. So these two columns I want to convert into date format. So how we can do this? So before coming here, we'll go to this particular notebook. So I created one function here. So the function is cast data frame columns. So this is the function, and inside that I need to pass these three parameters. So one is the data frame, column name, and the date format. So and inside that, what I'm doing is I'm using for loop, call name, target type. So call name, target type in call type map dot items. So that means here I am passing this parameter. So that parameter items method, by using items method, so I am iterating. So for this also I already made one video. So how to iterate both key and values of dictionary. Okay, so here here I'm using, this is my, you can say this is my dictionary. On top of dictionary, I'm using items method because I want to iterate both key and value. This is key and this is value. So key and value I want to iterate by using items method. So after iterating, once first iteration started, then what my condition is target type. So first values it will extract here, no? So that target type I am making as lower type. So that means all lowercase characters. Then if that target type, if this particular thing target type is equal to string, if it is matching to string, then what I'm telling is df equal to df. So this data frame dot with column name, and call of call name dot cast string. So that means if this particular target type, if it is matching to string, then I'm using with column. I'm providing here column name, that particular column name. See here, that particular column name, by using cast method, I'm converting data type to string type. So next condition is elif, if suppose that target type is in the format of either int or integer. Sometimes if you see in data frames, so some columns, sometimes they will mention as int, sometimes they will mention as integer. So that's why I given condition target type in int and integer. So it will check either int or integer. Then what it has to do is that particular column, it has to convert to int. So because I'm maintaining one standard data type here. So instead of having multiple int integer, so I'm making one common data type int. So similar way, if this target type, suppose if you have two double and float, then by using cast method, I'm converting to double. So that means my entire data frame will have only double type. So not multiple like this. And suppose if my target type is equal to Boolean type, then I am casting to Boolean type. So similar way, if a target type is equal to date, then I'm using to_date function here. So here to_date, here I mentioned only column name. So here I'm not mentioned format. So that means since I mentioned this the data type and my column name, if it is, suppose if it is in default format, then no need to mention the format. So this to_date format will convert to date. And one more condition is if target type is equal to timestamp, then I'm using to_date format on this particular column and I'm defining here format. So this format here I mentioned here. Okay, so all possible scenarios I mentioned here. Okay, so I'll take one screenshot. Next, we'll go to this our notebook here. So here we'll see our condition, our notebook. See here, if you see here, string, so all are string type. So next what I'm doing, call type map. So why I mentioned call type map here is in our that function, I define name as call type map. If you see here, this one call type map. That means, as I told initial, this is a dictionary. So by using dictionary items method, I am iterating this key and value. So that call type map I defined here. See here I mentioned dictionary, key value, pairs I mentioned. So here we have this many columns. So here name, age. For age, I mentioned integer. If you see here for age, it is a string now. So here I define age is as integer and salary as a double. If you see here, currently salary is a string and I want to change it to double. And the next is active. So actually these are all Boolean types, but it's reading as string type. So that I want to convert to Boolean type. So similar way, join_date, last underscore login. See, this is a date string, timestamp string. So this I want to convert to date and timestamp. So except first column, except name, remaining all columns I defined here by using dictionary method. So now what will happen? I will call that function. So this function I'll call here. So here, what is the function name? Cached data frame columns. So inside that, I will define these three things. If you see here, cached data frame underscore columns. So here, this is my df. That is my this data frame. This is the new data frame I created. So that I'm passing here. And call type map. Call type map is this dictionary. So this dictionary I'm passing here and format I'm passing here. Okay, so why I'm passing only this particular format here? Because if you see date column, this is in default format. So no need to define here. So that's why I'm not defined here. Format, I'm not defined here. And in timestamp format, I mentioned here date format. So this date format I mentioned here. That format I mentioned here within this function. So if you try to run this function, so what will happen? These two columns will get convert. If you see here first column, initially it is a date string. If you see here date string, and parallelly you can check here also. So join_date as string. And now if you see here, this is a string date. In parallelly, you can check here also. So here join date, date. Data type is date. And similar way, last underscore login. This one, it converted from timestamp to string. See here, this is our timestamp value. This timestamp value, it converted to date type, but into date format. See here, last underscore login is date. But if you see earlier, that is string. Here, this is string. So that's how to underscore date function, it will convert date and timestamp into proper date format. So in this video, I shown both the ways, one direct with column method and by using function in separate notebook and calling that notebook by using %run. So both the methods I explained on this, how to convert timestamp to date. So that's all about this video. If you really like this video, please like and subscribe. Thank you.